Let's talk about how to crack your GRC interview. Today's agenda is to discuss about some best practices, some resources to learn about GRC, couple of quick questions and sample answers, and two specific questions and how to answer them in STAR method. So what is the STAR method? STAR method is a structured approach used to effectively answer behavioral interview questions. It is an acronym that stands for situation, task, action, and result. The STAR method provides a framework for organizing your responses and highlighting your skills and experiences. Now, let's see some best practices. Governance, risk management, and compliance, or GRC best practices, can help organizations establish effective frameworks and processes to ensure regulatory compliance, manage risks, and promote good governance. Establishing clear objectives and goals, which clearly defines your organization's GRC objectives and align them with overall business goals, helps with guiding decision making, resource allocation, and risk management efforts. Adopting a risk-based approach. Implementing a risk-based approach to GRC where risks are identified, assessed, and prioritized based on their potential impact and likelihood. Allocate resources and develop mitigation strategies accordingly. Develop and implement a holistic GRC framework that encompasses governance, risk management, and compliance activities. Ensure that the framework is well documented, communicated, and integrated across the organization. Clearly define and communicate roles and responsibilities for GRC activities throughout the organization. This includes assigning accountability for governance oversight, risk management, compliance monitoring, and reporting. Develop robust policies and procedures that outline expectations, standards, and guidelines for governance, risk management, and compliance. Ensure that these policies are regularly reviewed, updated, and communicated to relevant stakeholders. Promote a culture of compliance and ethical behavior throughout the organization. Encourage open communication. Provide training and awareness programs, and establish mechanisms for reporting potential compliance violations or unethical practices. Establish mechanisms for ongoing monitoring and auditing of GRC activities. This includes conducting regular risk assessments, compliance audits, internal control testing, and performance evaluations to identify gaps and areas of improvement. Leverage technology and automation. Utilize GRC software and technology solutions to streamline and automate GRC processes. This can help enhance efficiency, accuracy, and reporting capabilities while reducing manual efforts and potential errors. Engage stakeholders. Involve key stakeholders such as senior management, employees, regulators, and external partners in the GRC process. Seek their input. Collaborate on risk mitigation strategies and ensure alignment with industry standards and regulatory requirements. Continuously review and update GRC practices to adopt the changing regulatory landscape, emerging risks, and evolving business needs. Stay informed about industry best practices and leverage insights from benchmarking studies and professional network. To learn more about GRC, or governance, risk, and compliance, here are some reliable resources that can provide you with valuable insights and knowledge. Professional associations and organizations like the Open Compliance and Ethics Group, or OCEG, they offer resources, webinars, and training on GRC topics. The IIA, or the Institute of Internal Auditors, they provide information on risk management, governance, and internal auditing. The RIMS, or Risk Management Society, they focus on risk management and provide resources and networking opportunities. Then GRC publications and journals like GRC Insight, which is an online platform that publishes articles, news, and best practices related to GRC. Compliance Week, a publication that covers regulatory compliance, risk management, and corporate governance. Journal of Governance, Risk, and Compliance, which is an academic journal covering research and insights on GRC topics. There are some GRC books as well, like Implementing Enterprise Risk Management by James Lamb. This book provides a comprehensive guide to implementing effective risk management practices. The governance, risk management, and compliance. It can't happen to us. Avoiding corporate disaster while driving success by Richard M. Steinberg. This book explores the integration of governance, risk management, and compliance in organizations, the basics of IT audit, purposes, processes, and practical information by Stephen D. Gantz. This book focuses on the role of IT auditor in GRC processes. Then again, there are some online courses and training. And then you have US Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, which offers information on regulatory compliance, corporate governance, and risk management. Then you have the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, which provides guidance and regulations related to financial services compliance and risk management. Alongside, you will also find industry conferences and webinars like GRC Summit, which is an annual conference that focuses on GRC strategies, technologies, and best practices. GRC webinars, which continuously help you and provide the vendors and consulting firms a platform along with the industry associations. So you can always look out for all these engagements to enhance and improve your GRC knowledge. Let's see some questions like, what is GRC and why is it important? What is your understanding of the three components of GRC? How do you approach risk assessment in GRC? Can you understand or can you describe your experience in implementing compliance programs? How do you ensure that an organization remains compliant with changing regulations? And how would you handle a situation where there is a conflict between business objectives and compliance requirements? So when it comes to answering the question like, how would you handle a situation where there is a conflict between business objectives and compliance requirements? A quick answer would be, I would approach such a situation by first thoroughly analyzing the conflict and understanding the potential risks and implications. I would then engage in an open communication with relevant stakeholders, including business leaders, legal counsel, and compliance experts, to explore possible solutions. It may involve finding alternative approaches, seeking regulatory guidance, or considering adjustments to business objectives to align with compliance requirements without compromising the organization's integrity. That is a very, very important part. Another question that very commonly asked might be, how do you ensure that an organization remains compliant with changing regulations? A quick answer might be, staying updated with regulatory changes is crucial. I would establish a system for monitoring and tracking regulatory developments, including subscribing to industry publications, attending conferences, and maintaining relationships with regulatory bodies. I would conduct regular compliance assessments, perform gap analysis, and update policies and procedures accordingly. Additionally, ongoing training and communication with employees would be essential to ensure awareness of regulatory changes. Let's see another question. How do you approach risk assessment in GRC? Risk assessment involves identifying and evaluating risks that could impact the organization's objectives. I would start by conducting a comprehensive risk assessment by analyzing internal and external factors, identifying potential risks, assessing their likelihood and potential impact, that is impact analysis, and prioritizing them based on their significance. Always maintain a risk register for everything and anything that you do. This information would then be used to develop risk mitigation strategies. What is your understanding of the three components of GRC? Very common question. Governance refers to the establishment of policies, procedures, and decision-making processes to ensure the organization is effectively managed. Risk management involves identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks to minimize potential negative impacts. And compliance focuses on adhering to laws, regulations, and internal policies to maintain ethical standards and avoid legal penalties. Short and sweet. A common question again, what is GRC and why is it important? GRC stands for Governance, Risk, and Compliance. It is a framework that helps organizations align their business objectives with risk management and regulatory compliance. GRC is important because it ensures that the organization operates within legal and regulatory boundaries while effectively managing risk and achieving strategic goals. Now, let us shift gears and take a different approach in answering one or two of the similar type of questions. Question 1. How do you approach risk assessment in GRC? Let us take the approach which is called the STAR method we discussed earlier, where S is the situation. In my previous role as a risk management analyst at ABC Corporation, I was responsible for conducting risk assessments as part of the organization's GRC program. From a task perspective, the task at hand was to develop a robust risk assessment methodology to identify and evaluate risks across the company's operation and enable effective risk mitigation strategies. From an action perspective, to approach risk assessment in GRC, I followed a systematic and structured process. That is, understanding the context, I first gained a deep understanding of the organization's business objectives, industry regulations, and internal processes. This involved reviewing relevant documentation, engaging with key stakeholders, and conducting interviews. Then, identifying risks, I collaborated with cross-functional teams, including subject matter experts from different departments, to identify and document potential risks. I used techniques such as brainstorming sessions, process mapping, and reviewing historical incidents to ensure a comprehensive identification of risks. Then, assessing risks. I developed risk assessment criteria based on impact and likelihood, customized to the organization's specific context. Using this framework, I assessed each identified risk's potential impact on business objective and the likelihood of occurrence. I also considered any existing controls or mitigating factors already in place. Prioritizing risk. Based on the assessment, I assigned a risk rating to each identified risk. This helped prioritize risks by focusing on those with higher potential impact and likelihood. I worked closely with stakeholders to establish consensus on risk prioritization, considering factors such as strategic importance, operational dependencies, and regulatory requirements. Mitigating risk. I collaborated with relevant departments and stakeholders to develop risk mitigation strategies. This involved evaluating existing controls, designing new controls or processes, and implementing risk response plans. I ensured that mitigation efforts were aligned with the organization's risk appetite and took into account cost-benefit considerations. And finally, the result, the R of the STAR, is by following this approach, I successfully completed comprehensive risk assessments that provided a holistic view of the organization's risk landscape. These assessments enabled the company to proactively identify and address potential risks, minimizing their potential impact and enhancing the overall risk management capabilities. This approach also fostered collaboration among departments and increased risk awareness across the organization. Let's see another question in the similar format, the STAR format. So, can you describe your experience in implementing compliance programs? Situation. When you answer, start with the situation. In my previous role as a compliance officer at XYZ company, I was tasked with implementing a comprehensive compliance program to ensure adherence to regulatory requirements and industry best practices. Coming to the task at hand was to design, implement, and manage compliance program that covered various aspects of organizations' operations, including data privacy, anti-corruption, and industry-specific regulations. Now, actions that were taken. Here's a breakdown of the actions I took to implement the compliance program. Assessing compliance needs. I conducted a thorough assessment of the organization's compliance needs by reviewing applicable laws, regulations, and industry standards. I also engaged with key stakeholders such as legal, finance, and HR department to understand the specific compliance requirements and potential risks associated with our business activities. Developing policies and procedures. Based on the compliance assessment, I developed comprehensive policies and procedures that addressed key compliance areas. This involved collaborating with subject matter experts, legal counsel, and departmental leaders to ensure aligning with regulatory requirements and best practices. I ensured that the policies and procedures are accessible, well communicated, and regularly updated to conflict any changes in the regulatory landscape. Training and education. To promote a culture of compliance, I designed and delivered training programs for employees at all levels of the organization. These training sessions covered topics such as code of conduct, anti-corruption measures, data protection, and other relevant compliance areas. I also facilitated workshops and interactive sessions to foster understanding and awareness of compliance obligations and ethical standards. Monitoring and auditing. I implemented monitoring and auditing processes to ensure ongoing compliance. This included establishing regular compliance assessments, conducting internal audits, and implementing controls of risk mitigation. I developed compliance monitoring tools and implemented automated systems to track compliance activities, identify gaps, and initiate corrective actions where necessary. And reporting and communication. I developed a robust reporting framework to provide regular updates on the compliance program's effectiveness to senior management and board of directors. This involved preparing compliance reports, risk assessment, and metrics to demonstrate adherence to regulatory requirements. I also maintained open lines of communication with employees, encouraging reporting of potential compliance violations and providing channels for anonymous reporting. And the result was, as a result of implementing the compliance program, XYZ company achieved a significant improvement in its compliance posture. We successfully met regulatory obligations, minimized compliance risks, and fostered a culture of ethics and integrity throughout the organization. The compliance program received positive feedback during external audits and helped build trust with regulators, clients, and stakeholders. To summarize, you can showcase your experience in implementing compliance programs by providing specific examples of actions taken, the tasks you overtook, and the positive outcomes achieved. Tailor your responses to highlight your own achievements and align them with the requirements of the specific job and organization you are interviewing with. You can provide a concise and structured response that showcases your ability to conduct risk assessment, collaborate with stakeholders, and implement effective risk mitigation strategies within the GRC framework. And you can effectively demonstrate your ability to handle conflicts between business objectives and compliance requirements by highlighting specific actions taken, the tasks involved, and the positive outcomes achieved. Thank you so much for watching this and hope you gained a lot of information out of it. Keep liking, subscribing, and share it with all your friends.